I went to see the doctor, and the doctor said, if you don't stop drinking, you have 2 to 4 years to live. Which at the time
Wow.
was
Wow.
shocking. Like I just wasn't expecting that. I'm like, you always envision people that use the term alcoholic. I'm not one for that term, but as people here are sort of down and out, living on the street, and here I was, a highly
Mhm.
successful professional, and getting this news was like, okay. And then whenever you're faced with having to give it up, and then you start to realize how dependent you are on it, it starts to become a struggle.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Family Man Entrepreneurs. Today, I am very lucky to be with Steve McKeown, who is working with professionals who are dependent on alcohol. So he's an alcohol coach, an alcohol mentor, and he helps people that are highly successful, usually entrepreneurs, get over their dependence. So this is a very, very interesting opportunity to learn more about that particular aspect of many people's lives. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It'll be an eye-opener probably for many people. So, Stephen, welcome.
And thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. Can you give me a short background story of where you come from and what your experience is regarding
Yep,
alcohol and working with professionals?
yep, certainly. Well, I'm from Belfast in Northern Ireland here. Lived in the States for 16 years. Moved from here in 2005, moved over to the States. Built a pretty highly successful career in the States and worked in a Fortune 500 company as a manager in the cybersecurity area. Moved back to Northern Ireland just during the pandemic in 2021 with my wife and daughter. Really, the reason I moved back was because it just I always wanted to get back. We didn't really have any family support. I was in South Carolina in the States, and there was no one around close that was had family support. And this was my mum and dad's first grandchild. And with the pandemic, we were stuck. We couldn't get over to see them. And there was enough signs to say, okay, maybe it's time to move home, which is the reason I sort of you know, moved back over and sort of, up sticks and left my career and left everything in
Hmm.
America and moved back to here. With regards
Hmm.
to my alcohol background, I was always enjoyed a drink from, you know, the age that you could start drinking. Over the years, it sort of picked up, more and more. And it's one of those things where a lot of times you just don't realize the impact it's having on you, or that you're actually becoming dependent on it. But obviously, after a stressful day at work, the easiest thing to do is to come home, have a few drinks, relax, and that's what most people do. And for most people,
Hmm.
that's fine. But there's quite a few of us out there that become dependent on it. For me, it
Hmm.
really came to a point. I had a young family, a daughter at 4 years old. I had my wife, and it just got to a point where it was really impacting my health and my relationship.
Hmm.
And it got to a point where, well, it was my health. Essentially, if I'm completely open about it, I went to see the doctor, and the doctor said, if you don't stop drinking, you have 2 to 4 years to live. Which at the time
Wow.
was
Wow.
shocking. Like I just wasn't expecting that. I'm like, you always envision people that use the term alcoholic. I'm not one for that term, but as people who are sort of down and out, living on the street, and here I was, a highly
Hmm.
successful professional, and getting this news was like, okay. And then whenever you're faced with having to give it up, and then you start to realize how dependent you are on it, it starts to become a struggle. And just to
Yeah.
be open, like it got to the point where I was debating which path to take. To be honest, it was, should
Hmm.
I just leave my wife and young daughter? Even then, I was trying to say, well, I could just go off and drink myself to death here, or
Hmm.
um,
Wow.
you know, let my wife find someone else who'll support her, someone else that's worthy of her. And my daughter is so young; she still hasn't got an attachment to me. Maybe rather than waiting till she's old enough to get that attachment, and then I had all of a sudden leave her because I die. Maybe this is the time, and
Hmm. Yeah.
it's hard for people who that dependent on alcohol to really like comprehend that sort of mindset. But that's the point that it can get, and it got to a point where I thought, okay, it's one way or the other. But there was something in me that just would not let go, and so I just decided, okay, this is it. I'm gonna fight this. Tried many methods with AA and counseling and things like that, and nothing really worked for me. And so I just put it on myself and changing my mindset and changing my understanding about drinking and changing my beliefs about really about life, not just alcohol,
Hmm.
to try to get over it.
Yeah.
And said to myself, well, I'm going to either die from drinking alcohol or I'm going to die trying. And that was my belief at the
Hmm.
time. Like I was going to die even if I tried to stop because I didn't think it was going to be possible. But over time and through a lot of struggles and a lot of emotional turmoil, I got through it and come out
Hmm.
the other end a better person. Not just having stopped drinking, but
Hmm.
someone that has continued to grow, who has moved over here, started a couple of successful businesses, and really got to the point where I was like, I think I can help other people. It's in a similar situation to me, and where I went through it myself, maybe I could be that person to sort of speed up the process, to give them the tools and the guidance to get where they need to be to
Hmm.
stop the battle with alcohol and to get
Yeah.
on a track where they have a better home life, a better career, and can push forward and continue to grow.
Yeah. 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 Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Wow, there's a lot to unpack here and a lot to get back to and ask more questions on. You mentioned beliefs being a very big part of it. I want to get back to that in a bit, but I want us to ask, what would the typical day be like? So for us that haven't been through that, what would a typical day be like for somebody that is so dependent on alcohol? From your own
Well,
experience and
for
from the
me,
people you work with.
yeah, for and really what it is it's basically you get up you get up in the morning. Well, you probably start from you come home from work. The first thing you go is, okay, that was a stressful day at work. You want to sit back and relax, and the only thing you can think about is having a drink, and that will play on your mind. For me, it was a lot of times, as I said, I had a wife and daughter, and so would go home, maybe pour myself a glass of wine, enjoy that with my wife and daughter until the time was time for my daughter to go to bed. And then my wife and I may enjoy a drink, and then she'd go to bed, and I would continue to drink just to, you know, relieve the stress as much as possible, and then go to bed pretty late, not sleep well because alcohol has such an impact on your sleep. Get up the next morning feeling absolutely terrible, hungover,
Yeah.
and then get into work and
Hmm.
trying to struggle through the day until you can get home again and you know um, get another drink. So
Hmm.
really, a lot of times your day's taken up by thinking about the next alcoholic drink, which is what I realized. Didn't realize how much of an impact it was at the time, but looking back now, that's the way it was, and it was just a vicious cycle. And there'll be times where I
Yeah.
go for a while and not have a drink and say, okay, I need to cut down, I need to cut down. And then you tell yourself, okay, I'm fine now. I'll go back to drinking, but then it starts to go back into the same old habit and the same old pattern again. And so it's you really don't give your best during the day, at
Hmm.
work, because if you've had a few drinks and you're hungover, you're not doing
Hmm.
your best work. Like there's no
Yeah.
people will
Hmm.
tell themselves they are, but they're not.
Yeah. Well, I am thoroughly impressed that you managed to get to such high positions and do all the amazing work you did, even with the alcohol. I imagine now it's going really well for you then, if it's
Yeah.
if you have the control of your full faculties. I am really impressed.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
my God, yeah, you described that journey, and it sounds in a way very familiar with a lot of journeys with addiction you hear from other people when it comes to either food or drugs or any other substance or any other belief even that they need that substance. Always, when you said when you just had a drink, you always think about the next drink you're gonna have. Like a lot of people would
Yeah.
have, when they just finish eating, they think like, well, what am I gonna have for dinner, and then what I have for breakfast, and it's always more and more to kind of go get through the day. These beliefs that you wanted to change initially, and you kind of dived into for yourself, and eventually did change. So, what were those beliefs, and how did you find out what the beliefs were that you had to change?
Well, it really it came down to the point that I'd read a few books on alcohol, and the impacts it had, and for me it was more on the health aspect because that's really the one that sort of brought it to my attention, and what alcohol can does to you from a physical standpoint. But I really had to sit down and initially my first thing was, okay, I'm not going to be able to drink again. So how do I deal with this? And then I had to get to a point where, and I'd read a lot of mindset books and things like that. One of the things that I've always sort of that stuck in my head and I've always thought about was Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning. And there's a line in there where he says, between stimulus and response, there's a gap, and then that gap, maketh the person. And that always stuck with me. So it was that really got me to say, okay, from now on, I'm gonna have to question every belief I have. I have to question the reason I want to do what I want to do. And in the beginning, that's the way I live my life from day to day. But,
Hmm.
as soon as I thought of a drink coming into my head, I thought, why do I feel this way? Why do I want this drink? I started to think, what's the consequences? Because really, whenever it gets to the point where you're dependent on it, it's in your subconscious, and you don't really think about having that next drink. All that's going through your mind, your subconscious says, "Oh, have a drink. That's what you do. That makes you feel happy. It's that dopamine. It doesn't think about the consequences the next day or the next
Hmm.
week." So I had to
Yeah.
start thinking the long term. I had to start thinking, okay, I'll
Hmm.
have a drink now. Okay, I might be happy for a couple of hours. How's that going to
Hmm.
impact me tomorrow? How's that going to impact me the next day? And it was really questioning, in the beginning, it's really questioning everything you thought of. And it might sound weird, strange, but I had to sort of take myself out of my own body and look at myself as a third person, you know, and talk to myself and
Hmm.
really ask myself some serious questions and come to some hard truths about who I was and as a person and what I
Hmm.
really wanted out of life. And so
Yeah.
that's what it came down to, and it was sort of like exercising the mind in the same
Hmm.
way as you would exercise a body. At the beginning, it was small
Okay.
steps, and the more the more you did, the stronger you got, and the stronger the self belief, but the more it could quickly come to the right decision rather than just reaching for
Hmm.
the next drink.
Yeah. So you follow the trail of whys, like why do I do this? Why do I do that? And so it was basically, did you do it in a way that you actually wrote things down? Did you sit down with a notebook and said, okay, why am I doing this? Or was it just with
Yeah,
every decision during the day, did you go, okay, well,
it was
why do I want
it
to
was a
drink
mixture.
now? Hmm.
It was a mixture, because sometimes just didn't have the chance to actually write down. Like if I had the chance to sit down and I did a journal and thought about it and
Hmm.
things like that. But there was times during the day where you're talking to someone, you're in a meeting, and you didn't have, so you had to actually just do it mentally and just question
Hmm. Yeah.
why is even your thought process going this direction?
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
was just a constant battle for a
Hmm.
few weeks until and over time it just becomes easier and easier. But in the initial stages, it's almost a 24/7 job.
Yeah. 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 It's a very brave thing to do because very often that will take you to very dark places, especially initially, right? Thinking about where
Yeah,
does it all
yeah,
come
like
from?
absolutely, it does.
And yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
that's
Well
where
done. That's
from Oh, thank you. And that's where the coaching business comes in because, yeah, whenever you're in those dark places, you
Hmm.
wonder where the light is, so a lot of
Hmm.
times I'll say, oh, don't worry, there is a light, and guide people
Yeah,
to show them that what they're feeling, they're not alone. And it's not the end of the world because sometimes you do feel that's going to.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and actually, good thing you mentioned that. I wanted to ask you about your coaching business and how you currently help professionals that deal with this dependency. So, uh, how do you approach them? Do they come to you? And how do you work with them?
Really, I've got my website and things out there. I sort of do a little bit of advertising, and just basically say if you feel that you're struggling with alcohol, you can reach out. I've got a calendar set up. They can set up a call with me, and we can talk about where they are, what they're going through, just to see if and I talk about a little bit about this where I just take them through the program that I have, and see if it's a good match and if you
Hmm.
think it would fit. And really, and the way I would do it, it's not. I don't say I could help everyone because we want to make sure we're both a fit for each other,
Hmm.
and they
Yeah.
they feel that they have what I'm offering is what they that
Hmm.
would be good for them and would work for them. Because there's many
Hmm.
programs out there, and I'm not going to say I'm the be all and end all. There's whatever works. The main goal
Yeah.
here is to help
Yeah.
someone to get off alcohol before it gets too serious. I want to help people before they get to
Yeah.
my stage.
Hmm.
I want to help them way before that.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you do that remotely, or is this always in person, or a bit of both?
It depends whether I help people sort of mostly in America and the UK, and it's mostly on Zoom unless they're of a few people of a
Hmm.
few clients that are pretty close by and I can meet them face to
Hmm.
face. If not, it'll be on Zoom and we'll get
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
um twice a week to have some in-depth, intense
Hmm.
discussions, and then obviously to have access to
Hmm.
me other times of the day with the phone as well. Just if they're going through something, want to
Okay.
talk to me, I'm there for them.
Hmm.
So I'm really there
Yeah.
to help them, especially and I feel it's pretty intense because I take them to the
Hmm.
points where they have to decide what type of person they want to be and to
Hmm.
make them question, what they really want out of life. Because a lot of people, although they think they know, until they actually dig down and start asking themselves really meaningful questions, it's surprising sometimes what
Yeah.
conclusions people come up with. Like there's a lot of people out there
Yeah.
that are in
Yeah. Yeah.
jobs that maybe
It's a.
they're comfortable, but it's not fulfilling them. And again, that's where alcohol will come in
Hmm.
because then that there gives them a release from what they're going
Hmm.
through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It just shows you how important it is to be authentic, like to be in line with what you are and what you want to do and where your joy is, right? Because a lot of people
Yeah,
do jobs that don't bring them joy, and they do have to cope with well, alcohol is a very common one, and food or just going out or numbing with TV or scrolling mindlessly. And I think
yeah,
we're all guilty to a certain point, but it's not to blame anyone. Obviously, we'll do that,
no,
but
and
it's
and
um,
and
it's amazing to what length people go to numb themselves sometimes. Go
you
on,
you
sorry.
hit on a good point there because with even though alcohol is one of those things, it's a pretty big one. It really is no
Hmm.
different in many ways from the likes of just numbing out in front of TV or you know scrolling through your phone. It's
Hmm.
the same thing. It's just trying to escape reality.
Yeah,
And if you actually do
yeah. Yeah.
sit in reality and experience your
Hmm.
emotions and question your emotions and understand what's causing them, you just become a stronger person and you can deal with life so much better when you do that.
Absolutely. And in your coaching experience, what are some of the common beliefs, some of the obstacles that people put in their own way? What kind of beliefs do they have that you've seen that they go like, I want to do it, but I can't do it because I'm blah blah blah. I am blah blah blah. I can't do blah blah blah. So what are some of these beliefs that you've seen.
The main one is fear.
Yeah.
The fear, the main fears are, can I actually give up? You know, they're afraid in case they will failure. Because once you
Hmm.
realize, okay, I am dependent here, um,
Hmm.
they're afraid of not being able to give up. They're
Hmm.
afraid if they do fail at that, then where do they go from there?
Hmm.
And it's getting them over
Okay.
that fear of, you know. Another fear is a fear of stepping outside their comfort zone. Their friends drink. It
Mm.
is a very, very social thing. And
Hmm.
so, what are my friends going to think of me? I'm not going to be able to enjoy myself anymore because, again, a lot of people link
Hmm.
alcohol to their enjoyment, and they think there's nothing else that's going to give
Yeah.
them enjoyment once they give up alcohol. That's probably some
Hmm.
of the main beliefs that people have.
Yeah. Oh, I completely understand. A lot of people will have it associated with their friend group as well and having fun, as you said. And but the opposite would be if I stop drinking, I'll stop having fun, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
it would be probably. How do they deal with that? Would it be just finding another alternative, another purpose in life, something else to focus on?
Yeah, yeah. Like if there's other hobbies and things like that there. What I found, which was interesting because I did go through counselling as well, and that's one of the things I said was to, find other hobbies and interests that, things that would take your mind off it. The problem is whenever you're so entrenched
Hmm.
in alcohol is the way I enjoy myself, you go and do that other hobby, you're still thinking about the
Hmm.
alcohol. Once
Yeah.
you start to experience emotions, both, and this is my personal, and I've had some feedback from people as well. Once you start
Hmm.
to experience emotions purely from yourself, and it's not through the
Hmm.
likes of alcohol or some other sort of stimulant, life in general just becomes so much more enjoyable. You start to appreciate the smaller things in life again, and you start to, get enjoyment out of you know, going out and for a walk and just, just nature and things like that there, where before,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
nothing like that really had an interest to me because I was so numb to it. It was always just numbing my feelings through the alcohol. But really, life in general becomes is to me, there's a lot of fun there without the stimulants of alcohol that you just completely miss when you're drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
But you can't see that until you're off it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. Now, I actually would like to, if you have an example, I would love to hear a success story of one of your clients, um, anonymously, of course, just somebody that you work with where you thought, wow, they were in this position, but they actually managed to do this, and now they are feeling a lot better.
Yeah. Well, so one that I'm just trying to think of ones there, but yeah, I've got one that I've worked with recently there who sort
Hmm.
of came to me who was highly dependent on alcohol, and there's always usually three aspects of your and one of them will be the one that you go, okay, now I need to do something about it, and it's either relationships, your family, health, um, I'm a mind slip what the other third one is. But anyway, this one's to do with the guy's relationship where his wife had just got enough and says, that's it, I can't do this anymore. You're drinking too much and lying about it, which happens a lot as well, especially like if you're hiding your alcohol consumption, then you have an issue whether you want to admit it or not. But he came to me, his wife had decided that's it, I've had enough.
Hmm.
Um, and he's like, I need to give up. Or it's not initially he didn't want to give up. He just thought I need to cut back. I need to do this. And I said that's it's not gonna. It doesn't work. Once you've crossed the line where you're dependent, that's always going to be in your subconscious. It's always going to be ingrained in you. And people will try to cut back, and there are a few that have been successful, and I don't know how to be honest, but most of the time it always goes back. It's kind of like driving a car or riding a bike. I say you never forget how to ride a bike. You know,
Hmm.
it gets ingrained in your mind. So that little
Hmm.
seed is always in there. So no matter once you've crossed that line, you can never go back to just enjoying one or two drinks. Um, So, so we talked it out, and he made the decision. Okay, I'm gonna give up. Um, and so it was tough going in the end because he was afraid of, his thought process was on fixing his marriage, where I had to get him into the mindset of you need to fix yourself first. There's a lot
Hmm.
that's broken with you. Well, not broken. The way I look at it, there's with people like with this, there's two different personalities. There's the one that enjoys alcohol, and there's the one that doesn't. And so I basically just
Hmm.
said to him, you have to
Okay.
decide what you want. What's the most
Hmm.
important thing? Sit down, write the pros, and sit down, write the pros and cons of drinking alcohol, and also said I talked to him about now you need to think in the long term. You can't think no more in the short term. And I went through with him again the process of questioning every thought he had and things like that. They're the things that I went through myself to the point where he's like I can't do this. I'm going to give up, and I'm going to. But again, if you keep going back to real, what are you going to get out of that? All you're doing is sitting in
Hmm.
comfort. You need to get out of your comfort zone. You need to get away from that.
Yeah.
You need to stand up and look at yourself and decide who you want to be. So through that, and through lots and lots of intensive talking and things like that there, he eventually got to the point where just one day he went, do you know what? I can do this, you know. And it came to the
Hmm.
point where he started to fix himself. And in that, he was able to start to mend his marriage again because then he was able to say to his wife, um, I'm completely sorry about everything I put you through. And I know that's only words, but you know, actions speak louder than words. If you give me the opportunity to show you who the new man I am, you'll see that I've changed, and it worked for him. And the want to drink
Oh,
never
good.
goes away, but it gets smaller and smaller. And as you see how you grow as a person, because it's not just about alcohol, as I said, it's about growth as a person,
Yeah.
then you don't want to go back there again.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that story. It must have been quite a journey for that guy. Again, it's just amazing how bad sometimes things have to become um, for people to change. But then when they do decide to change, very often they will change, take dramatic steps to change, and then
Yeah.
have sometimes very amazing outcomes. That's so good to see. So you mentioned
Hmm.
getting out of your comfort zone, and that is advice we hear very often. A lot of people on social media and coaches saying you have to get out of your comfort zone, which is correct. Definitely not disputing that. We all do all the time.
Hmm.
But how do you get out of your comfort zone? What are the first steps to uh, to kind of move in a way that you have to go to or that you want to go to, but feels uncomfortable.
The first one, like there's no way around it. It's a leap of faith. It's like you're standing on
Hmm.
the edge of a cliff, and
Hmm.
the way I describe it to my clients is we start. I say like you're standing on the edge of the cliff. You need to take that jump. You need to just step off
Hmm.
and have the faith that you're going to get caught whenever you jump off, because it is a scary aspect. There's because
Hmm.
there's no way to explain what's going to happen at the next stage. But once they do
Hmm.
that, and once they get over their initial sort of barrier of I can't do this, and start to question themselves and just get that little first success, it gives you something to build on. And then you can
Hmm.
say, okay, look, took that leap of faith, you stepped out of your comfort zone, you're still alive, you're still here, you're still breathing. Let's move on to the next step. You've done it once, you can do it again, and you just build. It's just small building blocks, and allowing them to grow. And then with each stage, you sort of the way I explain it, there's parts of you you'll feel strange and weird as these emotions come up that you've really never experienced before, and it is it's always stepping outside your comfort zone in the initial stages. You're always just taking that next step, and I
Hmm.
will, and I'll say to people, I'll challenge them, and I'll say, go and do something that you've never done before, or go do something that you're not comfortable with, and see how you feel afterwards, and just reflect. You know, all the fears in your
Hmm.
head, as I've heard before, when you're in your head, you're dead. As in,
Yeah. Hmm.
99% of the things that we are worried about and concerned about never really happen. You know, and it's having people see that and talking them through that to the point where, okay, I've done this before, I've stepped out of my comfort zone before, I lived to survive and tell the tale. Let me do it again. Let me move
Hmm.
to the next step. And then they get to the point with me where they go, okay, Stephen, I've got this. I can do this myself now. I know what I'm doing. And the phrase I always say, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
It's those little steps that really help you take the bigger steps. So
Yep.
yeah, as you said, first like a little thing every day, maybe do something slightly different, maybe take like a different route back from work, maybe you do you go running, you go different direction or whatever, you do slightly different things, and you kind of build on that. It's a wonderful process to see the day-to-day changes add up over the weeks and months, and it's it's
Hmm.
it's always nice also to think back, like if you're taking these steps and you are on that journey of self-improvement, to look back like where you were like 6 months or a year ago and how different everything was back then, and the progress you've made. It's great. Thank you for that good advice. And I wanted to ask you about community. Is that something you work with? Are you doing more one-on-one coaching, or are you also helping men connect with a community of people that have similar struggles?
I do one-on-one coaching mostly. What
Hmm.
what I try to take people through is pretty intense in the initial stages and really getting them to open up and look at themselves in a really stark way. And so to do that in a group
Hmm.
is not as easy. So I do just
Hmm.
mostly one-on-one. Now I do go around the community
Hmm.
and talk just like this and sort of give an outline, and give people some sort of guidance and where to go and what they need to do to take those steps. But if somebody's really
Hmm.
looking for the help and support and guidance, it's one on one.
Good, good, good. Okay, thank you so much for sharing your experience. Is there a piece of advice you can leave our audience with? If there's somebody there that's listening that feels like they have this struggle and they really want to get to the other side, or at least start making changes, what would be one of the changes they could start making, like today, for example?
Just, I would say the first thing is to get honest with yourself. Look in the mirror
Hmm.
and have a conversation with yourself in the mirror and ask,
Hmm.
is this the life I want to live? Am I living to
Hmm.
my full potential? And be
Hmm.
completely honest with yourself. Because what
Hmm.
we all do is, in many ways, is we all lie to ourselves. You know, just
Hmm.
to we tell ourselves we're happy when we're truly deep down, we know we're not.
Hmm.
There's something missing there, and it's getting to that core of, okay, how do I truly feel? What do I truly want out of life? And I'm sure you've heard it before. Think back, think to the end of your life, and what you would like people to say about you. And are you living a life now that is going to be fulfilled whenever you come to the time and you have to say goodbye?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very, very good way of looking at things. Thank you so much for your time, Stephen. I really enjoyed this conversation. I learned a lot, and it's amazing to hear the stories of you and the people you work with, and how they managed to get through all of this. And it just shows you it is all possible for everyone.
Yeah, and I'll
So
just I'll
thank
just share one other thing if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It,
Yes,
it
please.
it's one it, and it goes back to whenever it was come to the crossroads where I had to decide, sort of, you know, alcohol or my family. And there was, that
Hmm.
time whenever my daughter she was 3, 4 years old, and I thought
Hmm.
maybe now's the time to leave before she gets that connection. And that
Hmm.
was over 4 years ago now. And it was about 6 months ago, and it's just one of those times where you look back and you reflect. But I remember I was getting my daughter ready for school, and
Hmm.
she looked up at me, and she tells me all the time she loves me. But just this
Hmm.
one time, she just looked up, and her eyes connected as she's getting ready. And she just says, "Daddy, I love you," and it was
Hmm.
just so heartfelt from her, you know.
Hmm.
And the emotion that came over me was a mixture of fear, dread, happiness, pride, because I look back to that point where I was like, "Did I leave her?" And
Hmm.
before she builds that connection, to now that I was like, she's made that connection. I'm her dad now. There's no way I can go back. It
Yeah.
was just a one of those times in life, for just those special times in life where you're like, I'm glad I went through what I went through.
Yeah. Wow. You've gained a lot of experience there. Say thank you to your daughter as well
Yeah,
to help you along your path. So
yeah.
thank you so much for your time and your for sharing your experience. And I'll share any link in the description below on YouTube.
Okay. Thank you very
Okay,
much, Mark.
thank
I
you.
appreciate